Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the work session of July 16th for the Salisbury City Council. We have a rather short agenda tonight, but we will handle these as efficiently and quickly as possible. First up on the list is 132 East Main Street, First Move Properties, Nicholas Simpson and Amanda, you coming up too? Yeah, I'm sorry we don't have enough. You just we just get some chairs. Oh, never mind. Do we need a hand?
He's in the next track.
I wonder if we should move that. Don't we have because the cameras? Maybe we can- Yeah, right by the podium would be fine. If Keith can't get it, he'll come out and give us a.
Great.
Perfect, that's fine. Can you see that, Marty? Well, we got it on our thing anyway. Yeah, we've got it, okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Michael
Please
Sullivan.
introduce yourselves and.
Michael Sullivan here on behalf of developer First Move Properties LLC.
Nick Simpson, developer and one of the owners of First Move LLC.
Brendan Frederick, architect with Becker Morgan for the project.
Okay.
And you all know the woman sitting to my left.
Yes.
Okay,
All right. So basically, we're here today to introduce the new project that we're looking to do in downtown. It's one of the fastest and upcoming projects in downtown. We think that we have the ability to get this done in the next 12 months if we can work with the city to get this project completed. There's a lot of fun things that are coming with this project, and one of the main elements is the change in perception to downtown Salisbury by developing one of the next, or adding the tallest building in downtown. We can start to really move the pendulum of how people perceive the redevelopment of downtown, which has already begun and is going well, but there's a lot of stagnant projects that have not come to the forefront yet, and I think this is one of the projects that is really moving quickly, and we are ready to start construction as soon as possible. So we need to get through our final approvals, and we're ready to build this building where we can not only have the marriage between, not only continue the downtown redevelopment, but also get the marriage between Salisbury University and downtown to really become one. This building would be designed for students and would double the amount of people living in downtown in one shot. So we will have more people spending and living in downtown, and we are also able to get retail on the first floor, which is currently office space, and get that moved to another higher floor somewhere else in downtown. We're just relocating them. We're not moving these businesses out of downtown. We're just moving them to another location that's taking up more vacant office space, and as we see that number continually dwindling down. So one of the major points that we would like to point out on our project is a walking bridge from the back of the building directly to the top level of the parking garage, which is greatly underutilized right now. Every day there's about 142 spaces that we can count just on the top level that are not used and generating revenue for the city. And we're looking to have the students park up on that level and walk directly into the building for safety, and it gives the impression that it's just a higher caliber of development. So we're looking to get this to move forward with a really cool new modern look, but that also takes and maintains the historical elements of the building. And we're working very diligently to make sure that we preserve the history of downtown, but also reflect what's coming in the future and try to really get this to be something that the public is excited about and that can really help downtown. That's just the start.
Just a couple points to add real quick. One of the reasons why we're here before you today is because in order for this project to actually make it to market, it's going to have to make it to market very quickly. So as a result of that, project is going to have to be completed, be available for leasing by the end of July 2019. And the reason for that is because unless it's available by the end of July 2019, we'll have to wait until the next calendar year for students to be able to lease out the premises. At which point in time, our window for the capital necessary to invest in the completion of this project will have closed. And what you will find in replace will be your most likely generic redeveloped commercial office space with perhaps some mixed use involved in the building, but won't be really anything different than every other plan that's been put before you. And speaking of every other plan that's been put before you, this is not your general concept plan of eventually this is what we would like to see. Instead, the reason why we're here before you is because in a world without permits, you would see construction ongoing today. But because there is going to be a litany of permits that have to be obtained, specifically administrative approvals that will have to come before those permits are issued, we're now going to engage in an administrative process that will more or less hypothetically bank on approvals from preceding applications and then continue on until we have enough approvals for construction commencement. Moreover, there will also probably be some other occasions we'll come before you. Obviously, we're going to be constructing private infrastructure that is connected to public infrastructure, so there will be an ongoing relationship between the city and developer. But most importantly, the reason why we wanted to be here today is because we did not want the first time before you to be a time when we're asking you for some approval or making some request of you. Instead, this is an opportunity to explain the project to you, kick it off, and also show you, through our presence here, our absolute commitment to get this project done 12 months from now.
Questions?
Let's go first.
No, I'm just looking that way. Okay, questions?
Structurally, you're good with adding on the 6 stories. Can you explain part of that process and the engineering of the?
Absolutely.
And so,
Yeah.
So, we met a few months ago and came in kind of the look before the look type scenario, and we've done some due diligence testing with geotechnical investigation, understanding what the existing foundations are. An older building, finding, very immense structural drawings can be challenging. So we can kind of only go and test materials to the extent that we actually, with Nick, hired a geotech to take a brick sample of the wall to understand the compressive strength, to understand what the real-time values are. Fortunately, it's kind of a blessing in disguise. At the time, we didn't get the values we were looking for, so we had to rethink structurally how we were going to solve the solution. The initial idea was we're going to try to maximize and capitalize on the load-bearing masonry that would be available. That's not going to work based on the testing, which is why we do this now. It's hard to say, spend some money on something that we're going to destroy, but it gives you information that you need in order to succeed. So we've come up with a solution where we're going to have 2 column lines perpendicular to the street. This will allow us to have the primary load-bearing structure within the footprint, helps us stay away from lot line boundaries and kind of those weird overturning moments. And by doing that, we can take advantage of cantilever action to the perimeter so we can solve the floor structure. It actually is a more elegant solution. For the owner's benefit, the cost delta isn't that great, and it's going to actually, what allows us, that previous rendering was under the previous gaze where we were thinking we're going to be capitalized or maximize at a certain height.
Was it 8 stories originally?
Yeah, 9 stories. Now we're talking about doing a 10-story, utilizing compressed floor-to-floor heights, so appreciably the building won't get significantly taller. We'll have to work with the scale elements. The existing windows will play into that. It will allow us to get the other floor, and it will allow us to utilize that roof for program elements as opposed to just simply supporting equipment. There's some advantage, as you can imagine, as a developer, you're always looking to what sets you apart, and so I think having an occupiable roof deck as an amenities floor, as you can see, the floor plate is rather compressed, so we're trying to maximize as much square footage as we can if we can put the amenities to the roof, it allows us to provide a service to the tenants. So that is how we will solve the structural element. So it's kind of a roundabout way to get there, but it's more successful this way, we think.
How many square feet did you lose in the width? And then, well, you gained the whole extra floor, so
Yeah.
I assume you're positive. total
Yeah,
square
we're not really losing much. It's kind of interesting. When we did the original layout, the wind framing, everyone's like, oh, just gravity is one component, but as buildings get taller, you get story drift and dealing with the lateral forces of wind. We were going to have shear walls that were going to have to be done out cold form that was going to severely limit where we could put openings through the building. Now we're going to use a truss system where we're going to have diagonal chevron bracing down the center, so we still will have those wind frame components, but with a diagonal versus a solid wall concept, we'll have the opportunity to penetrate. So it gives us a little more flexibility in our unit layout. Still under development. I think this process is kind of have to crawl before you can run, and it's been a process to get some of these critical things identified, and then immediately once they get checked off, it's going to be a sprint, which kind of ties into the process. We know the process is at stake. We want to understand that, but from the minute that we can get through some of the critical key approvals, we will be working with Bill Holland's office and you guys in the city to understand how to fast track the construction, whether it means foundation permits and stuff like that. Things we've done in the industry, but takes a little bit more scheduling and sequencing, and makes them Nick and his team make decisions earlier, because once you start putting foundations in, you're kind of set. So we've got to work very efficiently in that respect. So kind of a long verb answer to your initial question, but
Appreciate it, thank you.
Mr. President, can I ask a question?
Sure.
One thing that I heard Brendan say, and I don't know, and maybe you can explain this. You said something about compressed floor heights. Can you talk about what that means?
Yeah.
In terms of like a finished floor to ceiling height?
yeah, what you're looking at is an existing structure where older buildings tend to have much taller floor-to-floor heights. That dealt with a lot of how you would heat and cool, mostly cool spaces and natural ventilation, and how the structural elements in. It's not uncommon to see a 14-foot floor-to-floor height. In today's utilization of HVAC systems, structural systems, and rated systems, we can get away with structural elements having like a 10-foot or 10'6" floor-to-floor height, which still gives you an 8-foot, 9-foot ceiling height, or maybe even taller in areas. Just it kind of, you've probably seen when you've gone to different hotels, and you come in, it's low, and you're entering your bedroom, all of a sudden opens up. And how we could be kind of outside the box thinking is how we route surfaces like ductwork and so forth. So maybe rather than having ductwork in the ceiling plenum like up here, you have an exposed spiral duct, which saves me all of that height, and I can get higher floor height. So
Get
the
that
intent
cool
is to not
industrial
have
Say industrial.
yeah. But the intent is not to have like the code minimum 7'6" floor height. Maybe 8s, 9s.
The reason I'm asking, I was just hoping that you're not using height as a driver, because I don't think I wouldn't think that anyone would have a problem with height to the building. I mean, it's the center of the city. It's where those things are supposed to happen.
That's the practical answer, and I appreciated that. But the real reason we have to get the compressed heights is because we started with a certain height that we needed, that I was looking for height, because I was just dreaming. I want downtown to be amazing. And I told Brendan, give us, as high floor, ceiling heights as possible. And so we did. But then when we had to go back and redo the structure of the building, we found that we could add more to the structure and get more people living in downtown, which is just taking it from the grandiose 10-foot, which is probably not practical anyways to build, to just more of a reasonable 8-foot type ceiling height. As far as the height of the building, the height we would love to go as tall as possible, but there does become the practical, how much does it cost to build it, and then the wind factors of the
Right.
building.
I'm also just thinking about from a marketability standpoint, spacious, nice ceiling
so
height is.
on your original floors, your first floor, the first floor retail is going to have 17-foot beautiful open ceilings. We're going to take out that drop ceiling that's just, it's butchered, it's awful in there.
Mr. Tillman has dropped ceiling, I think. Across the street, if you want to go over there next.
Yeah,
Show him how he can do it with 8 instead of 12.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
ready.
so you have that huge, so you have that huge first floor, but also the second, third, and fourth do have extended ceiling heights that we don't plan on adjusting too much. So our lower floors, while they won't have the amazing views that the upper floors will have, they will have much higher ceiling heights and more of the historical elements of the original building, while our upper floors will have really kind of unobstructed views in all directions and really it's a
How
pretty cool
many-
thing.
How many units are you looking to finally say the number of units?
That's what I was gonna ask too.
We're looking about, we're gonna have first floor retail. That, if you wanna count that as one, I call that separate. Then there's 16 4-bedroom and 9 2-bedroom units.
Are you doing, when you say student housing, are you doing it in conjunction with the university? Is this something you're gonna partner with them with, or is it?
We are looking to build a relationship with the university to become a priority housing development, to maybe work in conjunction with transportation systems and other safety elements that the school offers. But at this point, it is not being subsidized by the school, or it's again, this is private capital coming and working with public entities. So we're working to gain those relationships, but they're not subsidizing the project. That was the intent of the question.
If you,
They are not subsidizing the.
Meaning the
Could you-
university is not
Guaranteeing
funding
tenants.
this.
Yeah, they're not fun, I know. That's-
do you,
April, when you gotta speak up, because I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I forgot.
The mic couldn't pick it up.
let me ask this question to you, and then I'm gonna ask it to the mayor, because I always know if I've asked a good question, either Jack or the mayor will say that was a very good question. And Mira will smile at me, she'll tell me to be good, and Hardy will be going to a lawyer to get help if I need. I don't in any way want to disparage new development downtown, because obviously it's right for it, it's time. Then I put on my planner hat from the right of me, right here, and I say, if you have all those people, all those students, and let's just say they're students with the disposable income that they have, let's first talk about how much each of these is gonna cost. And then let's talk about, or discuss, if you put them in a car and they go to the top floor of the parking garage and walk over to their apartment, yes, they will still be ripe for the picking for Rody Joe's, and they'll still be ripe for the picking for Mojo's and everything else, maybe to get their hair cut. But if they're not walking on that street to get to their apartment, and to be honest with you, this is kind of like where we were a couple years back with down here. You know what I mean? Do you make the change and say, okay, I can support that, knowing that the property is better off that way than it is as it sits right now? But if you have 4 bedrooms and you have that many of them, and then you have the other ones, putting them at the top of the parking garage, which I think is a miracle, that someone would park up there, and we should just get pictures and be happy for that, you know? But does that take people off, unless the little grocery store, which both councilwomen preceding Ms. Jackson were like, you know what, I just like to be able to get some toilet paper downtown. You know what I mean? Pack
I know.
6 and toilet paper, you know?
And I think, I mean, it's a great chicken before the egg, cart before the horse scenario, right? Because, you know, you go to any major metropolitan area, you're gonna have the corner store, and you don't have Whole Foods everywhere, although in Manhattan, you whatever. But you go to your local spot and you pick up fresh fruit, because you walk from, it's easier to walk from 5 blocks in to deal with traffic or get on the thing. The reality here is these kids are gonna have vehicles, so they're gonna need a storage requirement for them. That's not to say if there is, I mean, I work downtown, I walk here, so I think if it's like, if you build it, they will come type scenario. So I think if you have the captive audience, I mean, I lived downtown before, when my wife and I got married, and I'd leave my car, and I wouldn't touch it for 5 days. I'd walk to work and walk around, and I would do as much as I can. So I think if you have the students there, then I think an entrepreneur that wants to have a corner grocery store will come. Because I think, not unlike most metropolitan areas where they're a central business district, which is what effectively our downtown has become in many ways, offices and so forth, that's very active during the workday from Monday through Friday. But on the weekends, the people that are typically down here are not. So I think by having people that will be living here, you increase the density, you increase the need to have those things. And I think they're the leading charge. If they're the first in and occupied, then there's kind of precedent for some of the other housing entities, and all of a sudden theirs goes up, You already have the existing people living in the current apartments. You have maybe potential other developments coming. All of a sudden, you have a captive audience that generates foot traffic overall. I would dare say that most people wouldn't want to use their car. They use it out of necessity, not because of a choice. In this area, we just don't have the capacity to.
Well,
I
Jim,
think the,
Can I just say, Jim, that was a very good question. Sorry, I just needed to get that out.
Jim?
That was,
That was a good question.
that was on, for those of you watching on Back 14.
The second part of that is the walking bridge really and the parking is the game changer to this project because the students will be driving to the university. I don't foresee them walking there. However, once they come back home, the
Or
access
they
to the.
could bike, because we have put a series of bike lanes
I hope they
for
do.
them.
I hope they do. I just know that, I remember living with several roommates back at Salisbury University that lived a block away and they'd still drive their car over. So just the reality of the situation is they're gonna need a place to put their car and we don't want parking to be the reason people don't come downtown. So I don't want to be in a position where.
Thank God they're from another generation.
Right, yeah, so,
Thank God. Right?
yeah,
Let me ask you about rent then, because some of the concerns
of course.
that I've heard downtown is that once we start doing this and we start putting rents at an exceptionally high, that we will gentrify before we even have a big project. We will gentrify before we ever build anything on Lot 1 or Lot 30 or any of them, because somebody's already come and decided that this is how much money that I can make off the students that go to school 6 blocks down the road, and not necessarily the way the rest of us live here in town.
Sure. That's a good question. And at this time, we're assessing the investment and trying to also work in bettering all of downtown. I mean, I want to see the entire area continue its development.
Let me ask you this
And-
though, but if we put all our eggs in one basket as we have on Route 13 South, solely to catch the money that those students bring, then we are putting all of our eggs in one basket, and that's what I worry about.
I think this is going to continue other
I'm
developments.
not saying we shouldn't keep putting the eggs in the basket.
But
I'm
can I,
not saying
can I,
that.
can I just,
Well, can I find
offer?
out how much he's gonna charge
Oh, yeah,
first,
yeah.
and then I may just be
Yeah,
like, okay, never
that's what I
mind.
We have we've been studying all the other apartment complexes and we have a lot of market rent information. We're gonna be coming in right in line with them. It's not gonna be in excess of but we're gonna be right in line with other housing developments in Salisbury because it is it's a,
And I want you to make money, but there's,
Well, you've got to pay off the building too, so that,
I understand that, I just
Yeah.
know
Plus, if
how,
you ever
I know
had
how high
students,
rent
if you
is
ever-
already.
if you've ever rented to students, when they leave, the amount of money you got to spend to fix the apartment up
Well, that's
sometimes,
anywhere.
yeah.
There's that too, so.
With students.
I guess. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Not everybody
Yeah,
does.
I guess, and Nick, I want to speak for you. I think in this development, you're trying to identify what your target audience is, and that target audience on day one could be students. But again, I'm pretty sure if I went to Nick and said, "Hey, I want to rent that," I would absolutely fill in. I think this is something trying to find an audience that can be. We're looking at size of units, what the amenities are. But I would say if that unit apartment, the Ross, never housed a single SU student because market-driven rates would allow you to do it, I mean, I think that'd be fine. I think it's just trying to find an audience to
It's
start.
just we're hearing right now from all the downtown business owners that, please come in because this is our time. It's very hard. But that's because we put all our eggs in one basket. And so my question to you is there an opportunity for anybody else to live in the Ross?
At this moment,
When I decide I don't need 3 floors and 2,000 square feet and 5,800 square foot lot and an elevator because I'm getting old.
sure.
Is that gonna be possible or is that gonna be $300 or $400 over my mortgage payment now?
I think that this particular development we're gearing it towards and marketing it towards students. That is the intention.
Okay.
So I do believe that we're gonna continue down that path because we have other projects that we would like to bring online in downtown that are not geared towards students and kind of have a happy balance between a student building and non-student building because they're a part of our community. But I think for this particular investment, it will be geared and marketed towards students.
Thank you, sir.
I have, I'm going to switch gears for a
Okay.
minute. Everybody knows where I'm going, probably. This will be the highest building in Salisbury, correct?
The Guerreri Center's bell tower.
Yeah, okay.
If you want to,
If you
that would
consider
be-
the bell
But you have to
tower,
look
right.
through the Layfield towers first before you get to the
Yeah.
bell tower.
So, I'm going to ask a question to the code people as well. So this is like, it's a high-rise from a firefighting point of view. It's a high-rise. Are the codes that we have now, the current codes we have now, do they follow NFPA completely?
Yes.
Because I think, if I remember correctly, 3 years ago, we updated the codes here formally. There have been no, I'm not aware of anything since then, so we're,
No, I don't think there has not been anything since then. So I believe
Okay.
we follow NFPA completely.
Okay,
I'll
all right.
verify that.
so that's a whole different animal.
All right. And I'm just throwing these out there because this is where you're gonna end up. Fire trucks in that alley with the air rights that you need to go across, that's still gonna be okay?
So we haven't seen drawings, but I believe the air rights easement will be on some of the higher floors. Is that right? So there would still be vehicles that can pass under it.
Okay. You know, firemen like to come in and let us know that, nice project, but this is what you're gonna do
Well,
to make it.
If they do NFPA, there's not an issue, but I think that it is it's a different animal, because we don't have anything that's gonna reach the top of that building.
Certainly.
It's humping the hose up the stairs, right?
They'll have certain requirements. We explained that when the project started. It's like, you know, it's basically classified as a type 3B, IBC B 300 NFPA, where it's load-bearing masonry, all non-combustible exterior wall and framing, but wood floors and wood roofs. We basically look, go this high, you're going to type 1B,
Right.
1000.
Which you have to.
Which is basically, you know, basically non-combustible rated structural frame, rated floors and all that stuff, because you have to for that safety. There are requirements,
A little bit.
kind of this is quasi, I think it's a high rise by name, but it's not the super high rise. We're not over 420 feet, so we don't go to like the crazy requirements, but we'll have, certainly you'll have your fire pumps, you'll have your standpipes, you'll have the
Standpipes.
hose, like you would see in a hotel
Okay.
and all that stuff.
Okay. Did anybody ask, somebody alluded to the number of parking spaces? What's the number of parking spaces that are gonna be on that? Is it gonna take the entire top floor?
I anticipate that each of the people living in the building will most likely be using a daily parking spot. The fronts would be paying separately, but I expect around 85 spaces to be used.
Are you gonna put that in their rent?
It will be a part of their rent,
Good.
yeah.
'Cause we don't need the parking people
That's good.
having to deal with that.
That's
Yeah,
good.
no, it'll be one check.
Seriously.
Yeah, it'd be one check to the city.
And what time does the garage go for? 4:30?
The garage is a little later. 7.
It's 6? Okay. So if they are having somebody over,
And weekends.
yeah, that'd be fine.
Or street parking, still an option.
Have you consulted back and forth with him about everything going on Main Street, and we can tear it up all at the same time?
That was the discussion. Nick, you've done a pretty good job of coordinating
It
some of the
helps
fire
them.
services.
It actually does help.
We
Good.
actually did coordinate the fire service, right?
Well, hallelujah for that matter. Let's just get this thing going.
Can I add
Sure.
I just wanted to mention from your approval standpoint, again, we're not here asking for anything tonight, but we will be back for the air rights easement. That'll be something that goes through city council. And we will work with our parking garage consultant, Tim Haas, on the connection to the parking garage. Otherwise, they're going through Board of Zoning Appeals for height and density, and then back to Historic District Commission, Planning Commission. So lots of opportunities still for public comment.
Hey, I sit on that.
God bless you.
I think this is a new type of review for the Historic District Commission. So they're gonna, and Planning Commission is gonna want you to have been there first.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
I would recommend getting on that agenda ASAP to keep up with your aggressive schedule.
yeah. because I can tell you, we're going to want to see,
I believe we're going to be going and working towards the historic approvals in steps, starting with the height and following as we get, so we can incrementally go through the project and then get all of our permits. I don't anticipate being in front of you guys asking for a gas lamp review right now. That's
no, that's,
yeah.
when it comes to us, that will be decided, I think.
We should
Then we'll
probably
really
meet
sink our teeth into it.
internally and talk about the steps and really map it out, because this is a schedule that's.
Yeah, I agree with, I think
And,
she's right on.
you know,
We
I don't
gotta
know
get-
that going in that manner is the best way to go, so let's talk, that's a conversation for another place.
Yep. Any other questions?
I just have comments, so I'll wait.
Well, I was gonna say, as far as the mayor and Amanda, I mean, how are you on, you know, your position on approving some of the stuff that's coming? And do you have any concerns that, for us to be concerned about, or, on that end?
After you.
Not yet, so we have not seen the language yet in the air rights easement. I know Michael's working on that, so we'll get that to review. Similarly for the plans, I know they're working on them and the structural plans are in motion, but we haven't received those yet to review. So we will be doing our typical detailed review.
Okay.
Mayor?
So just big picture, zooming out, thinking about the downtown master plan, and you know what we're trying to accomplish. You know, I want to make sure that we don't one building and one project in as complex an organism as downtown is not going to determine its future, but it has the potential to make an extremely positive impact. We get the question from other developers about do we want students or do we not want students, or do we want assisted living or do we not want assisted living? And I think we kind of have to let that organism be its own living thing. It's got to, from a product standpoint in terms of like the age and the demographics, we kind of have to let it live a little bit. And I think what's interesting here is there is a target, and it seems to be the target that's hardest for us to get other people to bite into. I don't understand personally why the university has not realized that the absolute best thing that they could do for themselves in their recruiting is to invest in urban housing. I don't get that, but perhaps they'll figure it out here. And whether or not they figure it out in partnership with this developer or no developer, they do it themselves, they got to figure that out. It is what students want. It's what people want. People have been gravitating toward more and more denser urban housing products for years now. You've seen it over the years that you've been here. I've seen it. I don't get why. Again, that's been a challenge for the university, which is 1.2 miles south of here, a walkable distance, by the way. So I think whatever we can do to encourage them to be involved, whether it's in this project or other things downtown, and I know we've tried that and we are trying that, is good. A couple other thoughts, not concerns, Mira, but just thoughts. Architecturally, I really like what's proposed. Again, I would be more inclined to suggest fire concerns aside, or notwithstanding, to suggest, from a marketability standpoint, that, the more you can get out of that, the more it becomes a landmark, higher views, the better it is for everybody. To Jim, your point about the bridge, I've shared it with you. I think it was one of the first things I said is, get people out on the street. But
If you could lower them down.
we were talking about a zip line earlier today. Zip line.
Oh, no.
But
Into the chamber back door.
right. I get that. I get that from a marketability standpoint. Everywhere else that a student rents, they get parking spaces right out front, and it's a big thing for them to drive back and forth between classes. I get that. So I understand, and I think as long as we can, work that out in a way that's favorable. I don't want to say fair to the city, it doesn't have to be favor, but fair to the city, that acknowledges the structural, engineering investment that we've recently made in the garage, the structural improvements that we're about to make to the garage. As long as those things are protected, I would worry less. I wouldn't worry.
We can't get the trolley in there, can we? I was gonna say, I mean, we have to
Into
run
the
this.
building.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I mean, if the trolley, if we could run it, if it's a
Make a
concentration
stop.
and everybody's in the
Make a
trolley,
stop.
make
Make
a
a
stop
stop there.
outside.
Absolutely.
We would love to make a stop up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think.
Anything you can do from a transit stand to,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think, parking, I joke with friends and, I'm guilty of it as anyone else. I don't have a covered garage, but there seems to have been this movement when I was growing up, suburban Philadelphia, homes, neighborhood, walking community. And then you have the large subdivisions, so all the farm fields, all these massive things, and everyone has this where I can go from my semi-heated garage into my car, go directly to the front door of any store I want and go home. And this whole integration of communities kind of been devoid. Like, people don't even know their neighbors because they just go into their garage. And I think there's moving that social aspect. So I think students coming down, living downtown, I think in urban settings like major cities, New York, people don't have, they don't have cars because they can't afford the parking space. So it's like there's so many people here. When you get such a density that having a car becomes unnecessary, you'll start seeing that. But I think it's at this point, the foot traffic, having those people there, like, they're gonna take the elevator. I think Nick's had a concept, the front, they'll have the parking garage and the elevators back there because it makes sense from a structural side. But the front door is still 132 Main Street. There's still gonna be a connection to that unit. So people are gonna still walk up Main Street and go into the hall. That'll be nice. They'll have an office they can pick up their mail and then go up and down. So we're not making the front entrance or the front door be the parking garage. It's really merely a repository for their vehicle that is necessary at this point in time. But I'd love nothing more than to see the trolley going around this whole kind of density and allowing these things. Maybe this is an opportunity to start that.
It's how you change mindsets. You gotta give people, you gotta show people something better. And I think you show them something better. I mean, that's the other thing, is if you look at, so there have been housing studies done for our region that show less than 2% vacancy in apartments. And that's why we have, a long pipeline of apartments and now single-family homes in the permitting pipeline through Amanda's office. A lot, because we are growing fast and we need housing. But they're always gonna gravitate toward what Brendan was just talking about. People are always gonna gravitate toward, I want that suburban life, I want that suburban experience, unless you show them something better. And it's gonna be garden style apartments forever until there's something better, a better product on the market. So I think that's really important. The other thing, and this is just separating from this discussion a little bit, but to your point, Nick, about long or drawn out projects downtown, especially those on public property that is being sold to developers, many of whom have received various permits and are receiving permits and going through the process. I think there are some policy things that within, for those things that are consistent with our plans that we can do to effectuate activity. I think one of them is the EDU zone, which is out there and needs to be renewed in like September, I think. But I think that's a great tool.
We have enough for this though, don't we?
Yeah. I think we've got 300, 280.
Did something right during those 6 years.
Yeah.
Something right.
Right?
During those 6 years.
You did, that's a good
I
job.
did, that was good.
That's
And,
three.
but I think that's a model, because I can think of 8, kind of significant developments that are under, in permitting right now. And somehow this is the fastest moving among the 9, excuse me, I forgot about the arena, that are moving through the permitting process, and this is somehow the fastest moving. But, you know, clearly, all of them end up in these conversations about, well, you know, but for this, we'd be moving forward, and if I weren't trying to build downtown, I wouldn't have to, deal with that. If I weren't building on an urban site, I wouldn't have to deal with that, so, you know, it's something that we all have to discuss. It's,
Yeah.
You know, not about this project, but,
Yeah.
I think there's a couple policy solutions out there, and I think we gotta start, putting them on paper, and other cities have adopted some good tools, and, like the EDU zone, I think we could probably make some things happen if we adopt the right policies.
You guys could become like Singapore and mandate that every new building is 100 stories.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, progress.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to go. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for
Appreciate
the
it.
time. Yeah, this is.
Thank you for having us.
Oh,
Look
my
forward
last
to-
question. Who's Ross?
The Ross is a middle name that goes back with some of the investors for its grandfathers, and the one investor involved, he picked the Ross without even knowing the history of it because he thought it sounded elegant. So it all worked out for the group that's involved. So
Just curious.
yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about that myself. I was gonna ask, but I didn't want to seem like a.
Well, we appreciate the time. We're looking forward to getting this to move forward. This is, this is real money
It seemed like a crazy.
invested in Salisbury, and I believe in this town, and I'm putting everything on the line to make it happen. I really hope that we can see the developments that we've all discussed. I definitely have bought into your plans, and I am ready to put my money where my mouth is on this project. So if we can get this to move along, I really hope that we can make this happen. So thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
You can stay. You're next.
Slide over.
Okay, next up is NWQFA loan ordinances.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. So I'm here to talk about the Maryland Water Quality Financing Administration loans for two of our projects. So these are both through the Maryland Department of the Environment. We had applied for grants or loans for two different projects. One was on Mount Herman Road, a sewer extension to two houses that are currently on septic systems. And again, we were successful in getting a loan with some principal forgiveness, and I'll go into the details of that. The second project was the environmental site design, which is the stormwater improvements at the City Service Center. So both of these projects were something we applied for last year. We actually talked about it probably a year ago when we found out they got awarded. And since that time, our bond counsel has been working with the Maryland Water Quality Financing Administration on the details of the bonds and the loans. So the very long ordinances that are attached have gone through MDE's attorneys and our bond counsel. And it essentially sets the parameters of the borrowing, including not to exceed amounts. So for the two projects, the sewer extension for Mount Herman Road, the not to exceed amount is set at $120,000. Our estimate for construction was right around $110,000. We were offered a loan of about $82,000, and the rest, which is 25%, loan with principal forgiveness. So that's great. We like getting that. For the City Service Center, we set the maximum borrowing amount at $500,000. Our construction cost estimate was around $471,000. So we always set the maximums a little bit higher for contingency when we're going through all these documents. Again, they gave us a loan amount of $353,000 and 25% of the total project with loan principal forgiveness, which was $117,800. So this is it's a favorable funding package for these projects, which we otherwise would have funded with bond money. So this is the next step. The projects are in MDE's hands to review also. The environmental site design project we have fully designed. That was designed under a separate grant program. So that's done and ready to go once all this is approved. The sewer extensions, we hired a consultant to help us with the design. They're close on that. So that'll go through MDE for permitting as well.
Was this done in conjunction with the possibility of moving the North Fork
At the service center, you mean?
Yeah.
So this was done, the design was actually done 2 years ago. So it's based on the current footprint, which had the old Dolby building,
Right.
which has since come down. So it incorporates in the new possible pole building. Now, if we make major renovations to the city
You're
service
gonna
center,
have to modify it.
we'll have to tweak it a little bit. But it's based on the current footprint, and we can certainly adjust as
So
necessary.
if my calculations are correct, we talked about a 6% contingency on the 500, on the 4.
Right.
Is that enough?
That's standard for MDE. I will say we do have for,
For MD,
yes, exactly. So we usually would not be able to get more than.
gotcha.
that
So
for
it's
contingency.
a limit rather than a,
Exactly. We can fall back at the service center on our stormwater utility if need be. If we run into hurdles there, we could fund some of it with that
Okay.
or revise the scope accordingly.
okay. Questions? Okay, thank you. Andy, you're up next. No parking lifted on Canal Woods Drive.
I'm gonna bring my muscle with me to
Oh, hi, Bill. How are you?
This one is pretty straightforward. A few years ago, they created some legislation and resolution to create a no parking area over at Canal Woods Drive. This was a direct result of a lot of the foot traffic from kids and families because of the pool that was
Post-pool.
associated. Oh,
Yeah.
yep, Canal Woods Pool. So the pool no longer exists. You have a significant reduction in foot traffic out there. You don't have the families and the kids and such. So there's been a request from the new association to go ahead and lift that no parking area so that there can return to normal street parking out there. We've done site visits, we've looked at it. I mean, it makes sense. It used to be that way. And so the resolution that was referenced was 1124.
Any questions? Go right ahead.
You have Canal Woods 1.
Yep.
For the sake of the sanity of the member of the council that represents that district, have you done any more, asked any more questions, I just, this is one of those places where if Public Works is on point, before the rain starts, we've gone and put the bags over there just because we know, and we love them, and they are long-standing. Those of us who lived through the years, will the road go through to over where the council person who represents
I
the
was there
district-
Saturday.
You all right? Is everything good?
I was there Saturday. Everything's
fine?
good.
Okay, thank you. Just throwing it out there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Nope.
I will tell you, I've been on all the email correspondence, and I've talked with the president of the homeowners association over there, and my biggest concern was, well, what about the people who are still there who clamored for this unusual piece of legislation to begin with? And I, just on my way from that office into this office, Billy told me, yeah, they're on board.
Okay.
So
Yeah, they're on
that was
board.
that was my biggest concern.
And I say this to make sure I say it out loud, it would be my hope that Mrs. Smith, the former president of the Salisbury City Council, is happy with this. And
She's
if
thrilled.
she is, then I am.
She's thrilled.
There we go.
Okay, any questions? Moving forward? Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill. Crushed it.
Thanks, Bill. Good seeing you.
bring him in more often.
All right.
Good Lord, you said a few years ago. Really?
This was, Mike Dunn was city council president. This
Wow.
was 2004, 2004.
Wow.
Okay, we have nothing further on the work session agenda, and we have posted, actually, on the 12th of July, we have posted a notice of closed session today. The Salisbury City Council will convene Monday, July 16th at 4:30 in the regularly scheduled work session in the council chambers in room 301 of the government office building at approximately 5:15. Pretty good. Council will entertain a vote to convene closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, or promotion of an employee over whom the public body has jurisdiction in accordance with the annotated code of Maryland, 3-305B1. I'll now entertain a motion to convene into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ireton and Ms. Jackson.
they have to take the vote, they have to take the vote first, Andy.
Yep. Yes, let's take. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. We are now in closed session.
that doorway, but I guess,
It stops flowing.
I guess
that
it
outside.
shuts off
The
the.
flow here is.
You need to be here.
Okay. All right, we've just come out of closed session, and we discussed the promotion of an employee and a personnel issue. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.